A propaganda video filmed in April of 1945 showed the German dictator Adolf Hitler decorating members of the youth wing who had been called up to defend Berlin. The film was supposed to show how Hitler was still in command, even as the Soviet Union's troops were closing in on the capital Berlin. But a telling part of that footage was cut from the final version and was supposed to have been destroyed. The cut portion, which was discovered much later, in the 1970s, it was found in an East German film laboratory. Now, what is special about this particular footage was that the Nazi leader's left hand is seen shaking violently as he holds it behind his back while greeting the military officers of the youth wing. Now, many historians and experts believe that Hitler was suffering from Parkinson's disease at the time that this video was filmed. Parkinson's hampers muscle control and impairs mobility. A person basically has no control over involuntary behavior, and handshaking is a classic sign of it. Surviving records later show how Hitler's personal doctor, Theodor Morell, had first noted Hitler's left hand shaking back in 1941, but he put it down to stress. And then in the final days of the war in 1945, the doctor basically concluded that Hitler was suffering from what was then called shaking palsy. That was the original name for Parkinson's disease. Days later, Hitler committed suicide in his bunker. On Crux Decode this week, there is renewed focus on Russian President Vladimir Putin and in particular his health as he gets on with the special military operation in Ukraine. The British newspaper, the Daily Mail, is reporting that Vladimir Putin may be forced to give up control of the war in Ukraine for a few days as he is to undergo cancer surgery. The Russian president will reportedly nominate hardline Security Council head and ex-FSB Chief Nikolai Patrushev to take control of the country while Putin goes under the surgeon's table. Patrushev is seen as one of the key architects of the Ukraine war so far. In fact, both Putin and Patrushev go a long way. They were colleagues together in the KGB, which is the predecessor to the FSB. And around the time when Putin became president in the late 90s, early 2000s, he made Patrushev the director of the FSB. The FSB is involved not just in intelligence gathering, that's one of their sole responsibilities, but they're also responsible for the president's bodyguard and inner perimeter security. Now, this claim of Putin suffering from cancer and having to undergo operation, it first appeared in the Russian telegram channel General SVR. Now, this same telegram channel had also reported some months ago that Putin was suffering from abdominal cancer and that he also had Parkinson's disease. This first appeared about a year and a half ago. Putin has repeatedly delayed getting the surgery done, but now he wants to get done with it before the 9th of May. Now, the 9th of May is the traditional Victory Day, where there is the massive parade. It's celebrating the triumph of the Soviet forces in the 1945 Second World War as they led to victory in Berlin. Now, Crux Decode had earlier reported that there is every likelihood that Putin will have to declare some form of military victory by the 9th of May this year, as far as his war in Ukraine is concerned. Now, this particular telegram channel has also added that the Russian president has oncology, and the latest problem was identified during the latest examination that happened in the last few days. Now, he's also reportedly suffering from Parkinson's disease, which also leads to schizoaffective disorder, which basically is symptoms of schizophrenia. The Kremlin, though, has always strongly denied that Putin has any medical problems. In fact, from time to time, they put out statements saying how the Russian president is in the pink of health. They every day put out pictures and videos as well, showing the Russian president meeting some world dignitary or the other, or meeting with his senior commanders and ministers, which always show the president in good health. Now, Putin is unlikely to agree to any kind of transfer of power, but given the fact that this operation is going to take a few days, he may not be fully in his senses for those 2 or 3 days. He has reportedly agreed to put in place a charge d'affaires to control this war effort. So the actual control of the country now passes on to Nikolai Patrushev. Now, such a move would be a little interesting and a little surprising because under the Russian constitution, power should pass on from the president to the prime minister. In this case, it would be Mikhail Mishustin. Now, it's also being reported that both Putin and Patrushev agreed to this transfer of power after a 2-hour heart-to-heart meeting. Now, the Telegram channel is also claiming that Patrushev is the only person that Putin trusts in his inner circle. Now, news around Putin's health, it once again resurfaced in recent weeks. There were a couple of videos of the Russian president which came to light, and it didn't exactly seem that Putin was in great comfort. There were visible signs of discomfort on his body. There are some recent investigative reports by exiled Russian journalists have also suggested that Putin has thyroid cancer and indicated that he's constantly surrounded by a team of doctors. Now, what happened recently was these videos seem to show an indication of involuntary behavior, basically a violent shaking of the hand, which doctors say is a sign of Parkinson's. Now, at a recent meeting with the defense minister of Russia, Sergei Shoigu, Putin was seen firmly gripping a desk. Many drew attention to his rather sickly appearance as well in that video. His body looked puffy, his face was swollen, his hands were tightly clasped around the top of the table. Now, clinging to the table with his hands is a way to try and hide this noticeable tremor or this noticeable shaking of the left hand. Now, for more than a month, the attending physicians have not been able to convince Putin that he needs to change the drugs that he's currently taking because those drugs seem to be ineffective against cutting down on this symptom or against pushing back on the symptom of the shaking of the hand, the involuntary shaking of the hand. The president, they say, is too afraid to change his medicines. But that was not the only video. There was another one that surfaced. This was just in the days before the Ukraine invasion happened. Vladimir Putin is seen shaking hands with the Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko. This clip was filmed, like I said, just days before the 24th of February. This clip too shows Putin gripping a chair and pressing his hand to his chest to stop it from shaking. Now, it fueled further speculation about the state of his health after this footage and images appeared to show his face a little bloated. His posture was also slouching, not the upright posture that you normally associate with Vladimir Putin. Now, one thing is clear. This kind of speculation on the health of leaders, it has always surrounded leaders of those countries, particularly when they're at war, whether it was Saddam Hussein in Iraq, Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. This has been something that has been happening from time to time. But in the case of Vladimir Putin, the West would be happy to fan this, even if it is a rumor, even if there isn't any merit to these stories and to this Telegram channel that has come up. And the Kremlin would clearly see this as Western propaganda. But Vladimir Putin's health and the health of his country and the health of his economy, and most importantly, the state of war that he started, will be all the more under scrutiny in the coming days.